All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to ConvertLabs Conversations. And today we have Sean Parry on. Sean, thanks very much for being here. And if you could just introduce yourself, that would be great.
Thanks for having me on, Kevin. Great to chat a few months back on mine. For those that don't know, so my name is Sean Parry. I run a digital marketing agency. We just work with cleaning companies. So we're with over 50 companies across the US and Canada at the moment. We run their Google Ads, SEO, and increasingly all the stuff around AI search as well. So I've been doing it for about 5-6 years now. And before that, I had a cleaning business as well. Grew that to 4 locations. And in actual fact, it was Rowan and Kevin early on that got me into the cleaning business in the first place. So I was one of those corporate bodies that was at work thinking about how do I get out of this and run my own thing. And I obviously saw Rohan's Reddit post, and then obviously Kevin, shortly after. So a lot to thank you both for, anyway, Kevin.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. I'm really excited to chat about the marketing side, because people always struggle with either the marketing side or the hiring side. So it's great that we can chat about that. When people come to you, because you have an agency now for marketing, when they come to you, what do you see as like the problems that they have, or maybe the wrong focus, or are they doing something wrong? Like, is there a common theme?
It's a really good question. So I think, and I made this mistake early on as well. I think the lack of tracking is a huge issue with, I would say, 90% of the people that get in touch with me. And what I mean by lack of tracking is, okay, we put in $2,000 into Google Ads or Meta or flyers or whatever it is. How many leads did we get? How many clients off those leads did we get? What is each client worth? What's the lifetime value? We obviously don't have a lot of that information when you're starting out. But certainly you can track, what is the cost per lead, cost per acquisition. And I think a lot of people make this mistake. As I said, I made the same mistake as well. You run your business on gut feel early on. So it's like, yeah, we've put a bit of money into ads. Yeah. It feels busy. Let's keep going. Let's add another 500 this month and see if it goes. It sort of works when you're early on and you're only running with one marketing channel. But let's say you're running Meta ads, you've got Google ads, you're trying to get in the Google Maps, you're doing some stuff on AI. It then becomes very difficult to figure out like the returns on each channel unless you're actually tracking it properly. So I think that lack of tracking, Kevin, is one of the big things when you ask someone, okay, you've got in touch with me, the business isn't growing. Okay, tell me about what you're spending on marketing. Okay, how many leads did you get? What's your cost per lead? What's the close rate? It's at that point that most people will then say blank. They've got no idea. I feel like I closed 30%. And I think, from my personal experience and working with, the businesses that are getting towards that sort of high 6-figure, 7-figure level, that's the real difference. They know the numbers to a specific dollar amount. Whereas early on, it's much more generic, much more, gut feel driven. So I would say that is probably the most common mistake I see early on. But as I said, it's a mistake I made as well. I sort of learned along the way.
So what's the best way of tracking? Because it does get a little difficult when you have calls coming in, they're coming into the same phone number. Is it as simple as just asking, where did you find us? And then putting that somewhere like a spreadsheet or something?
So at a very basic level, yes, that's right, Kevin. I think having a simple Google sheet or whatever spreadsheet, every single person that calls or, let's say someone who fills out a form, a quote request form, that needs to be compiled in a central place. So, you probably aren't running with a CRM at the beginning. But you should certainly, Google Sheets is completely free. So every single lead that comes in should get, put down, the name of the person, size of the property, type of clean, all that sort of stuff. And then you should ask them where they found you. So that should happen anyway. The issue with a lot of the, clients I work with is people will say, okay, I found you on Google, is that come from Google local service ads? Is it being from someone clicking in Google Maps? Is it someone clicking a Google ad, or is it the organic search engine results pages, which are sort of sit below Google Maps? So the short answer to your question, Kevin, is that Generally, with cleaning businesses, as you know, there are two main calls to action. Either someone fills out an online quote form, or it could be an online booking form, like, ConvertLabs form, or someone calls you up. Generally, tracking the lead forms and the online bookings is far simpler because someone fills out a form, they then get sent to a thank you page saying, thank you for your booking, we'll follow up to confirm. And you can put like tracking code on those thank you pages. So it's quite simple for an amateur just to add a bit of code onto that thank you page. Tracking calls is a bit of a different thing, really. It's a bit more complicated. And, you can use things like Google Tag Manager to help you do that. Generally, the way that we track phone calls, let's say we're running Google ads and Meta ads, and we are trying to figure out how many calls are coming from both. The way that call tracking works is that you want to have a specific tracking number for each marketing channel that you run. So this specific tracking number is a local number. So it just looks like a local number. It's got the local phone code. And whenever someone comes to your website or comes to your landing page, they'll see that local number. They'll click on that number. That number will then convert or redirect to your main office number. So you, as the cleaning business, you still receive the call. There's no difference, but it's that switching from a local tracking number to your main office number that triggers the conversion in Google ads or Meta ads or whatever channel. So with the phone numbers, the phone calls, you basically want to have at least one tracking number for each channel. And that is the way that you run call tracking. It's more complicated than tracking the lead forms and the online bookings. You can use Google's Tag Manager. There's lots of third-party software out there. CallRail, What Converts. You can just Google it, and there are lots of companies that help with that. So the tracking is broadly done in those two things. There's a ton of content on YouTube to help how to do this stuff. But the lead forms and the online booking, much simpler. That should be a no-brainer to set up straight out of the gates. And then obviously, ideally you want to be tracking those calls as well. And that's really how you get all your conversion tracking watertight.
To somebody that's like just starting off, it sounds like a lot of work, especially on the calls part. Like, is there a point where you recommend, like, for sure you should be doing this at, let's say, $10,000 a month or something like that? Or do you think it should be for the beginning, maybe?
The great thing with YouTube, as you know, Kevin, is basically the answer to any question ever asked in humanity since the dawn of time is on YouTube somewhere. Everyone with a bit of research can figure out how to do it themselves. It really just gets to a point where, you have to make the call. Is it worth me spending whatever, let's say 4 hours figuring out this call tracking stuff? Or is my time better spent finding someone to do it for me, and then I spend 4 hours doing some other stuff in the business? So there's no real cutoff point, I would say. I think generally, and this is with my sort of cleaning business owner hat on, I think the more that you can find like experts to help grow your business, whether it's marketing or recruitment or someone setting up your automations, all the software stuff that you guys do at ConvertLabs, the sooner you can find these people, the better, because it frees your time up. And you can then think about, you can spend 90% of your day thinking, how do I grow this thing? And not, my 3 Google ads calls didn't track yesterday. I think maybe not straight out of the gate, but yeah, certainly I see a lot of people grow, they can get to 10K, they can sort of muddle the way through. And then from 10K to 50K, that range, you definitely need someone to help you do it. Or if you've got that expertise on the marketing side, then that would be something you could do if you're willing to spend the time, Kevin. So I don't know if that answers your question. It's probably not the yes/no answer that you probably wanted.
No, definitely it does. Because there is a point where you're so busy with the business that you could start to lose a lot of information, a lot of things. And if you're not tracking that properly, it is really hard to get to the next level. Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely that point. So we talked about, the main issue that, people are having is they're not tracking correctly. do you find that people are maybe spending their money it's somewhere where they probably shouldn't be, like if for new companies, like perhaps, I always tell people not to sign up to, Yelp's, subscription marketing programs or anything like that,
Yep.
or Angie's List,
Yep.
and not pay for those because the returns, I mean, it's so rare you hear someone say, hey, I actually did really well on Angie's List.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so are there any mistakes you see people, make when it comes to, focusing early on?
Yeah, I think most people are pretty good at knowing where they should generally put a bit of money to work, where they should. People know you need a Google business profile. People know that reviews are important. People know you probably want to try Google and Facebook and
Yeah.
all those sorts of things. So I think most people are aware of what to do, but it's that piece that I was talking about earlier. It's that not having that visibility on what the return is, because the way that I sort of tell people is at the beginning, you basically want to try every marketing channel out there. Just because I'm going on about Google and AI all the time, it doesn't mean you should never think about putting some money into flyering or, something else. So I think the approach generally should be you want to try everything. There's lots of offline stuff, even things like an advert in a local newspaper, or, I wouldn't discount that off. I think that would be something you want to try. I think 9 times out of 10, you'll find that the returns are far lower than digital, but that's a different thing. So I think you want to try everything, but it's that the sooner people can get to the point of saying, okay, how many actual inquiries did I get? How many online bookings did I get? How many calls did I get? If you know that number, then you are probably ahead of 90% of people who are, starting out. If you know
Right.
that number, then you can back out your cost per lead. And then you take it to the next level and you can start tracking things like, okay, how many leads converted to actual clients? I call it the close rate. And you want to try tracking those numbers across all the marketing that you do. So a very common, example I get is that, people will say, okay, should I be running Meta ads or Google ads? I'm biased. I say, you tend to get the better returns on Google because the intention's there. But from a cost per lead perspective, Meta ads is always a lower cost lead than Google. But the difference is when you take it to the next step and you say, okay, what percentage of those Meta leads are turning into book clients versus Google? What you tend to find is that the close rate of Google Ads leads is far higher than Meta ads. So let's say Meta ads, you close 1 in 10, it's there or thereabouts. With Google, it might be
Yeah.
1 in 3. So when you look at the cost per acquisition, which is taking into account the lead cost and the close rate, you can start to see that, even if let's say you're only tracking the lead cost for Meta ads and Google ads, you might say, okay, Meta's better because the lead cost is lower. That's incorrect because you've not tracked the close rate. So where I'm going with this, Kevin, is you basically, in an ideal world, you want to try all the marketing channels out there. You want to track the lead cost, you want to track the close rate, and you want to track the acquisition cost and the cost per acquisition. The next step, if you're even more, into the data, is then, as we know, these recurring clients in our industry are really where the vast majority of value is. So these people that get this to clean every week or every 2 weeks or, every month, these are where the real value of these clients are, as opposed to like the one-off cleans. So if you can, start tracking things like the cost to acquire a recurring client, as opposed just to cost to acquire a client, you can start to see there are lots of different ways you can dice this data. But it all starts off at, okay, what did we put into the platform? How many leads did we get? I would say get that number nailed down, and then you can do all this other stuff that I've talked about. If you're at that level, you're probably at the same level of sophistication as someone who's doing, $1 million a year. So that's ultimately where you want to get to. But yeah, it's all tracking the numbers early on, as best you can.
When it comes to like Google, especially Google local services, are people literally just copying and pasting and utilizing a spreadsheet for kind of fine tuning this? Because I know with like Google, you're not inputting like how much that booking was, right? So how is somebody like actually, are they literally just copying and pasting from Google or doing an export and then importing into, a Google Sheet and doing it that way? Or what are you seeing?
Yeah, is it specifically local service ads you're talking about, Kevin?
With Facebook, like they'll give you a lot more metrics on there. But I guess you have to do the same with Facebook where, you have to actually input your lifetime value or what the actual, booking resulted in, that revenue number. So how are people actually doing this? Or is it just Google Sheets, or is there some software that is automatically inputting all of this data and then spitting out these numbers?
The aim with this is that if you have a CRM, and I know ConvertLabs does loads of good stuff, I'm sure you've got some of this functionality already, but generally what a CRM does is that it pulls in all your leads from all the different sources. And
Mhm.
you can do this all automatically. You can use Zapier, which is a great software connecting lots of different softwares. So you could say, okay, this Google Ads campaign, we've set up a separate tracking number for this Google Ads campaign. If someone calls that number, I want it to automatically get pulled into my CRM software. And what you should have in your CRM software is a list of all the leads, and it should be tagged. So this one is Google Ads, this one is Meta, this one's through organic. You can pull that in automatically. So there's lots of different CRM softwares out there. Some of it you can completely automate. Some of them you need to use Zapier. Some of them you might need to do manually. But the idea is that if you can start pulling all the leads and tracking all the sources for each lead, and then using the software then to communicate with clients, you can then see, okay, which clients converted. So you might find that, okay, I've got these 10 leads that I need to go through this morning. Okay, 3 of them have decided to go ahead and book service. So we can input manually the dollar amount. Is this weekly or one-off? And you can start to use the dashboards in those softwares to see, okay, how many actual clients did I get? These softwares will never be as flexible as you building a spreadsheet from scratch, completely tailored to your business. So usually it will get you a long way along, but then you might need to do a CSV export and say, okay, Google Ads got me 15 clients this month, 7 of those were recurring. And I know that my lifetime value is whatever, $3,000 for each recurring. And then you can calculate the return on investment in there. So we're not quite at the stage, Kevin, where someone can just call up and it all automatically calculates. Arguably, if we were having this conversation in a year's time with AI, you probably can do. A lot of this stuff is, tracking. AI is allowing us to track things more easily, whereas before we'd have to piecemeal everything together, use lots of zaps and everything. Now we can start to automate a lot of this stuff. So yeah, it really starts off with having somewhere that pulls in all your data automatically. You may need to do it manually. It may all be automated, or probably be a mix at the beginning. So that's really the
Right.
first, step.
So speaking of AI, what is changing, especially in the marketing front for local home service companies? Are people starting to find their companies entering into like search results in ChatGPT? I read recently that, Yelp is allowing, I believe it was
Yeah.
OpenAI access, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, if you know, I'm sure you know more about that. So if you can talk about that.
I actually earlier today recorded a video on that exact point, Kevin. So yeah, that's a big thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, on AI, so people are increasingly using AI to find local services online. So that's cleaning companies as well. So it could be, I'm based in Chicago. I'm looking for a weekly service for my home, family, this size property, give me 3 recommendations. So people are using AI in a very similar way to Google search. So whereas a Google search might be best house cleaning companies in Chicago, people would now go to ChatGPT and say, give me 3 recommendations for a cleaning business in Chicago. So, the way that I see the marketing landscape changing is that even say a year, 2 years ago, 90% of what I'd be doing for clients would be focused on Google, page 1 on Google. Someone types in cleaning company Chicago, how do we maximize our visibility there? So it's being visible on ads, LSA, Google Maps, organic. Whereas now, Google page one is still super important. There's a high intent of those people who are searching in that way, but we also need to get in front of people who are using AI to search for cleaning companies online. So the good news is that if you've got a good Google business presence, if you've got lots of reviews and Google likes you and Google's ranking you, AI is going to rank you as well. But there's certain other things that you need to do on there to get you recommended. One of the examples I give is that, the frequently asked questions is a really powerful thing. AI is different to Google in that it's more of a two-way conversation. So it's like, okay, these recommendations are great. I've got a dog. Is this a problem? I'm away for 3 months a year. What happens? Cleaner breaks something in my property. What happens? There's more of a two-way conversation than Google.
Yeah.
If you're using, things like, using frequently asked questions on your site, is a really powerful thing that everyone should be doing to increase their visibility on AI search. Because if someone's in Chicago and they've typed in, is this cleaning company pet friendly? And you've got a question that talks and answers that specifically on your website, you're likely to get that stuff pulled in. So, AI search is taking Google search, which I sort of see as like a 1.0 to now like a 2.0 search. It's more engaging, more back and forth. It's an evolution of the work you've done on Google. So it's not to say that you're doing fantastic work in Google, forget about it. It's AI search now. No, AI search takes all the good stuff that you've taken from Google, but you need to do additional things. You need to do your frequently asked questions. As I said, Kevin, I think we talked about when we spoke last time, Yelp was pretty much, before this announcement, I pretty much tell people not to bother. And now it's actually, let's go for Yelp.
Oops.
Let's get some reviews up.
Yeah.
So, as we know, AI is feeding off all these sources. Yelp is one of them. So it's, as marketers and as people that are looking to get clients for cleaning companies, we just need to be aware of this stuff. And it's changing so quickly. But simple answer to your question, Kevin, people are using ChatGPT and Claude as sort of the next level search engines. And, the intent of those people is arguably higher than a Google search. You'll probably get higher close rates. Someone's done a back and forth with AI and they figured out that, yes, this company gives us exactly what we want. Great reviews, pet friendly, insurance cover. And then they call that company or go to their website, you probably find that conversion rate is even higher than Google. So AI search needs to be a core part of your, digital marketing.
Do you see this as an opportunity for new companies to kind of potentially dominate a channel, right? Like, is this like early, let's just say 2000s, where it was like very easy to rank on Google, right? It wasn't super sophisticated back then. Is it like that now, or is it just going to be where the top 5 companies right now are just going to be dominating on AI search? Or maybe there's a window of opportunity for newer companies to kind of dominate AI search without having, maybe 1,000 reviews on Google and all the stuff that all these other companies have. Is there potential for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're still very early stage here, Kevin. Taking your Yelp example, let's say there is a relatively new business that is decided they want to really push hard with Yelp and, get, rather than sending their clients to a Google reviews page or a Facebook reviews page, they send them to Yelp and they're getting both the volume and the, the speed, the velocity, review velocity as well. So, that is just an example of a very simple way that a newer company could get ahead of a more a more established company that, okay, they've got 500 Google reviews, but they've got 2 reviews on Yelp and they're both 1 star. So, if you are aware of the things that feed into AI search, Kevin, there's absolutely an advantage, a first mover advantage on this. I think more generally what this teaches us is that this landscape is just changing all the time. I think for a long time, it was all about Google. We need to be aware that things can change. We need to have, social presence across all the profile, across Meta, Instagram, all the social platforms that we're aware of, even Yelp, which was dead as a dodo until 6 months ago, until the last few weeks, really. So I think as a slight sidestep, if we think about what AI is doing for any business, but cleaning businesses, for our conversation, if AI is making the building of websites simpler, if it's making the running of marketing simpler, what is the edge? How can one cleaning company outcompete another cleaning company? And for me, it all boils down to quality of service. It's reviews. It's reviews on Google. It's reviews on Yelp. But it's also, getting interviewed by the local newspaper. It's getting a partnership with the local realtor. So I think, it's going from Google to AI. We almost need to broaden our approach a bit more. We do lots of SEO work with clients as well. And I'm telling people, think about offline marketing. Think about sponsoring the local softball team in your area, or think about sponsoring, putting some money, working with a charity in your area. A lot of that is not directly going to impact you, but if Google sees, some of these, you're getting mentioned and tagged and you've got a backlink, and AI, I think, is trying to look at lots of different sources. At the moment, Google is the go-to place for this information, but I can certainly see that Yelp will come in and maybe some of the other social channels. So I think we need to just be aware of a broader approach. And I think as a newer business, if you are aware of that, then you have an advantage. As you know, with a lot of marketing, Kevin, particularly on SEO, we're trying to say, okay, what's this competitor doing that we're not? How can we compete this one? So I think if we're doing that with Yelp and all the other channels, that gives us that first mover advantage.
As you were speaking, I was kind of laughing because it's funny how AI is kind of forcing us to build better human relationships, right? And that includes our reputation in the industry, which is our reviews. It's our relationships with realtors or sponsorships that we do, or whatever we do. It's almost as if you have to have more person-to-person relationships and better relationships to kind of excel in this AI space, which is really interesting to me.
Yeah. I mean, that is, for me, one of the things that can't be AI'd to a degree, is that relationship.
Right.
And as us having this conversation, we can't get an AI, maybe we get an AI Kevin and AI Sean in 2 years' time having this exact conversation. But I think ultimately people still value that human to human interaction. Cleaning's still a really personal thing, isn't it? You're trusting someone in your home. So, if you are a client looking to hire a cleaning company and you see the founder talking about the business and they're working with this charity and they've got this great, arrangement with cleaner recruitment and, all that stuff, I think that's very hard to AI away effectively. And, this is one of the reasons why I think this social media is important, is that it allows the people behind a specific business, your cleaning business, to develop some sort of, relationship with clients. It could be potential clients or existing clients. And I think for me, when I think about business 5-10 years down the line, I think that'll probably be one of the last things to get competed away by AI. Everyone will have the same website. Everyone will have the same design, same technology. What's the end game? What's the difference? It's probably, do I like Kevin? Kevin's a nice guy. I trust him. Let's hire him, sort of thing. Completely my view. I don't know what your thoughts are.
No, it's funny. I was looking for a product the other day and I was going through all of these different websites and they're all AI created. You can, they have the same styling, and these same color schemes. And it's very easy to tell that they've all been created by AI. And, you just kind of got to go through reviews and customer support. How quickly and how well do they respond to you as the differentiator? Because oftentimes the websites are just so good now. It's what sets them apart, So going back to general marketing, with all the companies that you work with, is there anybody that's they found success in places or a marketing channel, something that maybe others haven't or haven't been able to crack or anything like that? Is there anyone that's like really good at like something completely different than just Google or meta marketing?
Yeah, really, really good question. And I think the good news is that wherever you are, there will be something that is different. West Coast, East Coast, wherever, there will be some opportunity that exists. So, a very common example is, we work with house cleaning businesses and commercial cleaning businesses. I've got a client that does very well with dropping off donuts or cakes. And this is quite a common strategy that lots of marketers have talked about in the past. But he spends hundreds of dollars each week and goes around with a box of donuts and goes to all these potential commercial clients that he wants to and leaves his business card and says, just wanting to introduce yourself. So that is working really well for him. But maybe if you did that in another part of the country, you'd get zero. Flyers is another one. I'm sort of talking about some of the like more old school channels actually, because you're right, Kevin. Everyone knows that Google's important, and that makes it harder to outcompete. You sort of need to know what you're doing to really outcompete everyone else. So a lot of the opportunities I would say would be potentially in those channels where people have sort of forgotten about it. They've dismissed it. It's the donuts. It's the flyers. 1% of all the flyers, you get one out of 100 people calling you up. But actually, if you come up with a really, really interesting angle on your flyer design, for example, or you are hyper targeted with a particularly wealthy neighborhood in your area, you can find these little pockets. And I think that, for me, when I think about your question, Kevin, where are these these channels of opportunity? I think that would be where I would say the downside to that is that going back to the box of donuts, you could try it and it could be a complete flop. And in all likelihood, it will be a complete flop, which is why I think it's a bit of a no-brainer to go down the Google, side and, try your meta ads and all that stuff. They're popular and talked about often because they do work, but they are competitive. I would say get those up and running and get the business to, 10, 20, 30K a month, generating a nice bit of profit. Then I would look at some of these things. Things like, you can run competitions on Meta, we can cut up and chop up all the data. We can feed Meta all our client data. We can run a competition. Marketing generally is a case of just running loads and loads of tests. And a lot of the time it doesn't work, but you will find that 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10 of those tests do work, and you want to capitalize on it because it will eventually get eroded away because other people will see you doing it. And then you have to try and test the next one. So, those are a couple of examples. I think having a look at Yelp at the moment would probably not be a bad idea. I think you probably need to see where you are ranking for AI recommendations, and there's various tracking tools that you can see. Where is ChatGPT ranking me as a recommended cleaning company at the moment? So you would need to see where ground zero is, and then maybe you go really, really hard with your Yelp marketing. Maybe you get all your reviews there, post a load of content, loads of photos. So, I would say, those would be a few areas, but because most of the time these won't work, I would say don't start them at the beginning. I would say get to 10, 20, 30 a month where you've got a bit of fat in the business to not waste, but test. I can put a couple of K into that. Let's see what happens. But yeah, long answer to your question, Kevin. I think maybe some of the old school channels that have been dismissed, the offline channels, you might even think about local newspaper. I've got a client that there's a very wealthy, antique.
I just got a newspaper 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And I was reading it, and I haven't read a newspaper in like 15 years.
Yeah.
And it's this local community. And I was going through the whole thing. I'm like, what's going on in my community?
Yeah.
And, there have realtor ads and stuff in there. I think a lot of that's coming back because I was just like, you know what? I got the newspaper right here. I want to like read that and not be on the screen anymore.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like a lot of that might actually be coming back.
I think so. I think you'll probably find that the rates, the pricing is not too bad either, because everyone has left. A lot of these
Yeah.
publications, these newspapers and magazines, to be completely honest, in a lot of financial trouble. They just want to sell anything. So I think there's an opportunity there. I think whether it's a local newspaper, magazines is a good option. As I said, had a client and he was putting in some ads in a antiques magazine, high-end antiques magazine. Wealthy clients, as we know, a small readership, but very, pricing's not a problem, cost's not a problem. So it's that type of thing, Kevin, that I think is definitely worth a try. As you know, the downside with a lot of offline marketing is it's not very easy to change, test and things like that. You might say, okay,
Right.
I want to put 1,000 into this newspaper. 2 weeks later, it comes out, and then you need another few weeks to see the results. And then you want to test a different title or a different copy. With digital marketing, you can do that instantaneously, which is obviously why it's taken all that spend. But it's these little things, that are important. And, you need to track these things, as I talked about a few times already. Put a coupon code on those ads. You want to be asking people when they call, where did you hear? Oh, I saw your ad. But also, if you put a coupon code on there, whatever, Facebook 20, not Facebook 20, like newspaper, Chicago newspaper 20, you can, if people use those codes, obviously that they've seen you through that channel as well. But yeah, I think the offline channels are certainly worth a shout. Yeah, I think you're right. I think people are maybe going towards offline again. It swung so far one way, maybe there's a bit of a shift back as well. So I feel you, Kevin, being on a screen all day.
I could totally see, in like 10 years, people are going to have their, AI robots, and then they're going to be reading a newspaper. It's just,
Yeah.
that's the world that we live in. Let me ask you about like regions and locations. If I were to start a cleaning company today, I don't think I would do Los Angeles as a whole. I think that would be incredibly difficult. Are you finding that people who are either niching down to specific areas or focusing on like suburbs, or because I know it's different than back when we started. Back when we started, we were doing like in our group, people were doing like Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle. I don't see people doing that now and being as successful as we were back then. So can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing as far as like regions, locations, what's working, what's hard?
You're absolutely right. I think niching down by service and location is a really important thing to do as early as possible. The location, obviously, as I said, going after the entire LA or Seattle or whichever big city, it's going to be extremely difficult. You either want to be in a particular neighborhood, a particular city of that area. And the reason why that works is that Google, and I think, AI as well, generally likes location and service specific businesses. Let's take an example, Molly Maid, they do across the whole lot. If you had Molly Maid versus a local cleaning company that was doing, say, 500K a month, as opposed to, I don't know what Molly Maid does, 50 million a year or whatever it is, Google would generally prefer the local specialist. The homepage just talks about this particular neighborhood of Seattle. We don't do house cleaning, commercial cleaning, window cleaning, office cleaning. We just do residential cleaning in this neighborhood of Seattle. I think that's a really, really smart play today. And it's the same with if you've got your client hat on and you're looking to hire a cleaning company. I think most people would probably go for a local cleaning business that serves a specific areas and embedded in that community, just as house cleaning, as opposed to some huge franchise that is across the country, completely, faceless brand, all that sort of stuff. There's obviously advantages to having franchise, insurance and all that stuff. But Google thinks about it in the same way. And when I'm thinking about marketing, specifically when I'm talking about SEO and getting ranked in maps and AI search as well now, having that location niche down approach and service niche down approach will help you get ranked quicker for local SEO in Google Maps. If someone types in house cleaning in whatever specific neighborhood in Seattle, if someone is on Google and searches that and your homepage just talks about that, you're more likely to get ranked than, say, the same company with talking more generically about cleaning across the whole Seattle area. And it's a differentiation thing as well, Kevin, isn't it? As we know, there's so many cleaning companies out there. If you are a cleaning company in Seattle, you look like whatever, 200, 300 other companies. If you are a high-end house cleaning only business in this particular neighborhood, you've probably got competition of one or two. So
I mean, if you're like Airbnb specific in northern Seattle, you can even go to like lakeside homes or whatever, like everyone that has that specific lakeside home in North Seattle, like they're not even going to question, is this for me or not? Should I even keep looking? It's like,
Yeah. So I think it's a really powerful thing. And, I talk about it a lot, if you can get really good differentiation, I think a lot, going back to your earlier question, what do some of the mistakes people make at the beginning? I made this mistake, your business looks the same as all the other cleaning businesses in your area. The sooner you can like differentiate, the more likely that you can justify a higher price. If someone is in that neighborhood, they just want a high-end residential or whatever it is, they might pay a higher price than the generics. So,
right.
as we know, the margins in this industry, we're not a Facebook, we're not, one of these big tech companies with huge profit margins. We've got to be sensible to get a nice profit margin. So getting that pricing power by differentiating in that way also is a smart move for business. We've got more profit, we can reinvest, we can grow, we can bring in admin staff, VAs, supervisors, all that stuff. So I think differentiation helps for the financial metrics of your business. It also helps with your SEO and being identified by Google and AI as well. And they obviously, if you're getting more leads through Google and AI, that is obviously feeding into the financials as well. So you're getting more leads, more clients who are more profitable. Both those channels are going to be working in your favor. So yeah, I think absolutely today, Kevin, you want to be niching down by service and location as much as you can.
Yeah, that's a very great point, and something I think that's super important, especially when you're starting a cleaning company or any local service, to really think about that. And like you said, it's really going to help with your margins because you're going to be able to justify charging a higher price because you're really solving a very specific problem for a specific person. And so the match is there. So Sean, thank you so much. I know you have to run here soon. I would love to have you back on next time we have some time. And if anyone's listening to this has questions, please write it down below in the comments section on YouTube. Sean, if you have anything you want to add, and if how people can reach you and maybe work with you, if you could let them know that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so the website is project83.co. So project83.co, and you can contact me through the website. I speak to people every day, so I'm very happy to speak to any business owners out there, and we can chat through marketing and see if we can work together. But yeah, it's been really great to chat, Kevin. We always have a good conversation. So yeah, would love to come back at some point in the future and see what AI has done to us in the meantime.
Yeah, maybe it'll be our AI avatars talking to each other.
Well, exactly.
Well, thanks so much, Sean. Thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Thanks, Sean.
Great. Thanks, guys. Cheers.